What happens when a family starts pushing an 80-year-old woman out of her own home? With smiles and brochures? You won't believe how one meaningful move turns their entire perfect system upside down. They say you start fading when you get old. What they don't tell you is how fast it happens once your hair goes gray and your voice stops mattering at the dinner table. My name is Helen June Carter. Not that anybody bothers to use my full name anymore. Around here, I'm just Mom when they want something, or Grandma when the grandkids need a ride. Most days, I'm wallpaper. Neutral background. Something to walk past and maybe dust off on Mother's Day. But last Tuesday, I decided to do something small. Nothing dramatic. Nothing outrageous. I made breakfast. Now, I know what you're thinking. Breakfast? That's it. Well, let me tell you, in this house, eggs and toast might as well be a rebellion. Because the moment I cracked that first egg, it was like I'd broken some sacred, gluten-free, dairy-sensitive law of the land. I was up at 5:30, same as I'd been for the last 60 years. Old habits don't retire just because your joints do. The sun hadn't even made up its mind to rise, and there I was, in my faded apron, whisking eggs like I was about to cater a wedding. I even had the audacity, yes, audacity, to sprinkle a little cheddar on top and toast some sourdough. Real butter, mind you. Not that margarine nonsense. By 7 o'clock, the kitchen smelled like Sunday mornings used to, back when family actually meant people sitting around a table, talking to each other instead of scrolling through screens. Then Ryan walked in. That's my son, my only child. 48 years old, beard trimmed to impress the LinkedIn crowd, always smelling like success and eucalyptus hand lotion. He looked at the spread, then at me, and made a face like I'd set fire to the countertops. "Mom, did you cook this?" "No. Good morning." "No. How are you feeling?" Just suspicion. As if I'd poisoned the eggs out of spite. "I thought it would be nice," I said, laying out a linen napkin. One of the ones from the cedar chest I brought when I moved in. "You all leave so early. I thought a warm breakfast might be." "We're doing smoothies now," he cut me off. "Plant-based." Plant-based. Right. Because heaven forbid something touch a skillet. Katie showed up next, in yoga pants that cost more than my monthly pension. She gave the table a once-over and smirked. Not a smile. A smirk. The kind that says, "We've talked about this, haven't we?" "I told you, Helen," she said, sipping green sludge from a mason jar. "Ben's sensitive to dairy, and Tyler won't eat anything with gluten. These kinds of things, they're really outdated." Outdated. That word again. I'm not a phone. You don't just replace me with a newer model because I run on common sense and butter. I sat down quietly, not touching my own plate. The boys came in next. Ben, 12 going on arrogant, looked at the food and said, "Grandma, are you trying to clog my arteries?" Tyler, 16 and perpetually annoyed by my existence, just rolled his eyes and asked if I'd seen his wireless earbuds. "Check the sofa," I said gently. He didn't even say thanks, just walked away. I looked around the table. No one eating, no one saying anything, just the low hum of blender drinks and the click-clack of phone screens. And I sat there with my hands in my lap, feeling like a ghost that cooked. I told myself not to cry. Tears don't do much in a house where people forget your birthday and act like they're doing you a favor by letting you live in the guest room. Later that morning, I went out to the garden. It's the only place left that feels like mine. The raised beds were mine once, built with my late husband's hands, when soil under your nails meant pride, not you, bacteria. I put on my wide straw hat, slipped on my gloves, and started pulling weeds. My back ached like an old promise, but I kept going. Dirt's always been more honest than people. I was pruning lavender when Ryan's voice broke the calm. "Mom, what are you doing?" I turned around slowly, standing with the help of my little green spade. "Just tending the garden." "We've got guests coming tonight," he said, glancing back toward the house where Katie was no doubt prepping charcuterie boards no one would touch. "It needs to look clean." "I'm just trimming." "It looks messy. People notice these things." People notice these things. But not the woman behind the shears, apparently. He didn't offer to help, just stood there like a manager doing a quality check. "Maybe you could just take a break today?" he added. Take a break. From what? Existing? Around 4 p.m., I heard them whispering in the hallway. Whispering, but not quietly enough. "I mean, she's still so set in her ways," Katie was saying. "We've talked about moving her to something more manageable, like I'm a pet. Or a plant you keep on the porch until it wilts." "She's just lonely," Ryan replied. "But she needs to stop inserting herself everywhere. Inserting myself into my own life." They stopped talking when I walked into the room. Funny how guilt leaves the air thick, like fog over a swamp. Dinner was a production. Not for me, of course. I was background noise again. They'd invited friends from Katie's work, all glossy smiles and words like synergy and plant-forward living. No one asked me to join the conversation. I cleared plates. I fetched napkins. At one point, someone handed me a wine glass, assuming I was catering. I didn't correct them. I just smiled. But then it happened. One of Katie's friends, sleek, wrinkle-free, probably couldn't tell a mop from a martini glass, asked how old I was. Just small talk. Light banter. 80, I said. The room went quiet. Then someone laughed. Then another. Not cruel, exactly. Just dismissive. As if I'd told them I moonlight as a tightrope walker. 80? A guest chuckled. "You don't look a day over 79. More laughter. Ryan coughed, tried to cover it with a joke. "Yeah, Mom's still kicking around. Still kicking. Like an old shoe someone can't bring themselves to throw out." I looked at him, at all of them, and I stood up. No cane, no wobble, no apology. Just me, 80 years tall. But that's a story for another chapter. That moment changed everything. You don't want to miss what happens next. Stay with me. The injustice? It's only getting started. You ever felt like a guest in your own life? Not a visitor. Not someone dropping by for a weekend. I mean a full-blown house guest. Someone politely tolerated, quietly resented, and gently nudged out of the way like a lamp that no longer fits the decor. That's what I'd become. 80 years old and reduced to something decorative. Harmless. Background ambiance. After I stood up at that dinner party and stared them down, I saw it. That flicker in their eyes. That look people give when they realize the old dog's got some bite left. And let me tell you, it rattled their organic salad bowls. The next morning, things got quieter. Katie didn't bring up the incident. She just rearranged the living room furniture, again, and made sure my rocking chair somehow ended up facing a wall instead of the window. Subtle, right? Ryan avoided eye contact, which for him was rare. He usually loves playing the "I'm just trying to help Mom" card. This time, though, he was all tiptoes and tight-lipped smiles. He even left a half-hearted sticky note on the fridge. "Don't worry about breakfast. We've got it today." Smileys don't erase condescension, Ryan. I stayed out of their way. Sat in the garden, drank my tea lukewarm because someone borrowed the microwave for meal prep again. And I thought, Helen, you raised this man. How did we get here? It wasn't a dramatic fall. It was slow erosion. Death by 1,000 kindnesses. Each time I was told to rest, each time someone said, "Let me handle that," it was another brick taken from the foundation of who I was, and I let it happen, politely, quietly. But now I was starting to feel something dangerous. Clarity. Around noon, Katie popped her head into my room. Sorry, guest suite. That's what they call it now. Makes it sound like I should be paying rent or leaving a Yelp review. "Hey, Helen, quick thing," she said, too sweet by half. "Tyler's got SAT prep this afternoon, and the tutor needs the dining room. Could you maybe use your laptop somewhere else for a bit?" My laptop, the one I used to look up recipes they wouldn't eat and send emails, nobody answered. I smiled. Of course. Wouldn't want to interfere with test scores. "Thank you," she said, turning before I could add that the dining room used to be where we celebrated Thanksgiving with cloth napkins and candlelight, not calculus and bubble sheets. I took my laptop out to the porch. It was windy, and my fingers ached from the chill. But I wasn't about to park myself on the toilet seat just to check my email. Some lines I still had. I sat there, thinking about how far from home you can get, without ever leaving your address. My home, the one I'd poured 40 years of my life into, was now full of strangers who shared my blood, but not my values. And as I sat there freezing in my own front yard, something snapped. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Anger is loud, messy. No, I was clear. And clarity, that's lethal. Later that day, Tyler came storming through the house, cursing under his breath because the Wi-Fi dropped during his tutoring session. He passed me in the hallway like I was invisible. But not before he muttered, "Maybe if Grandma wasn't sucking up bandwidth with her bird videos." I turned slowly. "It was the weather, Tyler. Wi-Fi doesn't respect age or bird watching." He blinked, snorted, and walked away. You know what's funny? I wasn't even online. That evening, Katie gathered the family in the living room. I knew something was up by the way she held her iPad like a courtroom exhibit. "We've been talking," she began, always a red flag when someone starts with that. "Your mother and I," Ryan added, "we think it might be time to explore some options." Options, that's what they call it now. Exploring options. Like I'm a trip to the Bahamas they don't really want to take, Katie continued. "We've looked into a few independent living communities. Very nice places. Active. Lots of events. Some even have saltwater pools." Saltwater? I could practically taste the brochure. Ryan tried the soft sell. "Mom, we just want what's best for you. This place, it's busy. We've got the boys, the schedules. It's not fair to you. You deserve peace. A space of your own. A space of my own. As if I hadn't given up my entire space so they could have theirs." I didn't shout, didn't cry. I stood, again. "I see," I said. "You want the house." Ryan flushed. "It's not about that." "It's always about that," I cut him off. "When your father passed, I let you move in. I offered, Ryan. Remember? You were jobless. Katie was pregnant, and I said, 'Come stay until you get back on your feet.' That was 12 years ago." Silence. "The dining room? The guest suite? The garden? You renamed my life and called it compromise. And now you want to downsize me?" No one spoke, so I sat back down. Dignity, after all, doesn't have to shout. That night, they didn't talk to me. Not even the boys. Just floated past me like furniture. And you know what? That hurt. It shouldn't have, but it did. Because no matter how much spine you grow, it still stings to be discarded. But pain? Pain's a hell of a teacher. This is the turning point. Everything you've been waiting for, it's about to blow up. Don't miss what comes next, because what Helen does next, it's going to shake the whole damn house. Let me tell you a funny thing about silence. It's never really quiet. No. Silence hums. It buzzes like a wire about to snap. Especially when you're sitting in the same house with four people who just tried to gently shove you out like expired yogurt. And no one's saying a word about it. That night, after the talk, you remember, the one with brochures and fake smiles, I couldn't sleep. My room smelled like lavender, which Katie had started spraying on my pillow for better rest, as if I were a rescue cat with nerves. I lay there thinking, not just about what they said, but what they didn't. Not once did Ryan say, "Thank you." Not once did Katie say, "We wouldn't have survived those early years without you." And the boys? They were raised to think this house grew from the ground with their names already carved in the title. But guess what? It didn't. And the deed still had mine. So I sat up in bed, flipped on the lamp, and did something that shocked even me. I opened my filing cabinet. Back when paper still meant something, I kept everything. Marriage certificates, tax records, home purchase documents, organized, dated, pristine. My lawyer once said, "Helen, you're a vault." He meant it as a compliment. That night, I became a storm in slippers. I pulled out the house deed, still in my name. No co-owners, no transfers. I looked at it like an old friend I'd forgotten to call. And that's when the idea hit me. They wanted the house? Fine. Let's see how they liked a change of scenery. The next morning, I made eggs. On purpose. Bacon, too. Real bacon. None of that turkey strip nonsense. I even set the table again, just like I used to. Not to please them this time, but to mark my ground. Katie walked in, pinched her nose, and muttered, "Smells like a diner." I smiled. "Good. Means it's alive in here." Ryan followed with his protein shake. "Mom, I thought we talked about this." "Did we?" I asked, pouring coffee into one of my old ceramic mugs. "Because the only thing I remember is you trying to evict me with a pool brochure." "That's not fair. Neither is rebranding my life as a burden." He blinked. Katie sighed. The boys weren't even up yet. Cowards. "Let's skip the small talk," I continued. "You want the house. I know it. You've been circling like hawks for years, waiting for me to roll into a retirement villa and hand over the keys." "Mom, it's not like that." "But it is. So let's get one thing straight." I reached into my cardigan and slid the deed across the table like a poker chip. "Read it." He looked down, then up. "It's still in your name." "Of course it is," I said, "because I never gave it away." That's when Katie stepped in. "You're making this hostile. We've only ever wanted what's best for you. You wanted what's easiest for you. Don't confuse that with kindness." She opened her mouth to argue, but I wasn't done. "I wiped vomit off your baby's bib, Katie. I gave up my sewing room so you could have a nursery. I paid the gas bill when Ryan's business tanked, and you two were too proud to admit it. You think this is just about real estate? Honey, this is my life." The room was still, and then I did the unthinkable. I stood up, again, and pulled out a second document. A lease. I had a meeting the day before. Quietly. With a lawyer who used to be one of my bridge partners. Turns out, retired lawyers love nothing more than sticking it to ungrateful children. "I'm leasing this house," I said, holding up the paper, "to myself." Katie blinked. "What?" "I'm forming a trust. The house stays in my name. I pay a symbolic lease to myself. It protects the deed from being taken or contested. You're tenants now. At will. Which means I can ask you to leave. Legally." Brian's mouth dropped. "You wouldn't." "I just did." They didn't leave right away. Oh no, that would have been too easy. Instead, Katie cried, loudly, theatrically, as if I'd just burned down her childhood home instead of preserving mine. Ryan tried guilt. This isn't the mom I know. Good, I said. She was tired of being taken for granted. Then came the boys. Tyler refused to look at me. Ben asked, "Does this mean we can't play Xbox in the den?" Kid, you're missing the point. But bless your heart. That night, the house was tense. Every step echoed like thunder. I heard hushed arguments behind doors, but no one spoke to me. And for the first time in years, I slept like a rock. The next morning, I made pancakes. Because why not? The sun was out, the garden was in bloom, and my spine, still holding strong. Katie walked into the kitchen, red-eyed and silent. Ryan followed, rubbing his temples like he'd been in court all night. "Mom," he said carefully, "we'd like to talk." "Finally," I said, "let's." The conversation that followed wasn't easy, but it was necessary. For the first time, they listened. Really listened. And by the end of it, no one had won. But I'd reclaimed something far more important than space. I'd reclaimed my damn voice. You thought that was the end? Think again. One final chapter. And what happens in it will hit harder than anything before. Stay. You have to see how this all lands. 3 days. That's how long the house stayed quiet after the showdown. 3 days of polite murmurs, closed doors, and footsteps that paused whenever I walked into the room. It was as if they were waiting for me to soften, to fold, to do what old women are expected to do, say, sorry, just for standing up. But here's the thing. I didn't stand up to play a part. I stood up because I remembered who I was. And I wasn't folding. By the 4th morning, I found a note on the kitchen counter. Real pen and paper. Imagine that. "Helen, we've been thinking about everything you said. We're sorry. Let's talk. Really talk." Katie, no smiley face this time. I made myself a cup of black tea. No sugar. Strong. Just like I needed to be. And took it outside. My hands were steady as I read that note again. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally remembered how to breathe without permission. And when Katie stepped out onto the porch, wearing a hoodie 2 sizes too big, and eyes that had clearly been through a storm, I didn't greet her with bitterness. I didn't need to. She sat down slowly. Like every movement cost her more than she was willing to admit. "I didn't realize," she started, "how much space we'd taken from you." "That's the thing about entitlement," I replied. "It doesn't ask, it assumes." She nodded. Silence. The good kind this time, not thick with tension, but with possibility. Later that afternoon, Ryan asked me to walk the property with him. Not talk about it. Walk it. We went past the old oak tree where Tyler broke his arm falling from a branch he insisted was sturdy. We passed the fence I painted every spring like clockwork until they decided beige was more neutral. He stopped near the roses, my roses, and ran a hand through his hair. "I've been selfish," he said, staring at his shoes. "I told myself we were helping you. But the truth is, you were helping us." For years, I raised an eyebrow. 12, to be exact. I don't know why I couldn't see it. You didn't want to. Another pause. Then, "I want to fix it." I looked at my son, not the man with the mortgage and the stress and the LinkedIn page, but the boy who used to hold my hand when crossing the street, the boy who cried into my sweater when his pet turtle died. And I saw that same boy now, just older, more confused, and finally, humbled. That night, the whole family sat at the table. Not eating out of obligation, not snacking on protein bars while scrolling through their phones, but actually sitting. Katie made dinner. Real dinner. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, peas with mint. My old recipe. She didn't ask for help. She just did it. And she got it almost right. Ryan poured wine from a bottle, not a box. He raised a glass. To Mom, he said, and to finally listening. I didn't make a speech, didn't need to. I just nodded. Sometimes dignity sounds louder than words. The boys apologized in their own way. Tyler offered to fix my laptop's slow connection, unprompted. Ben brought me a weird little drawing he made of Grandma the Queen, complete with a paper crown. I laughed harder than I had in months. Later, Katie brought me a box, a real gift, wrapped and everything. I raised an eyebrow. Go on, she said. I opened it slowly. Inside was a key. Your own studio, she said. We cleared out the garage, put in insulation, new flooring, even windows. You said you missed painting. We figured, maybe you'd like to start again. My throat tightened, not from sadness, but from the sheer unfamiliar weight of being seen. Over the next week, things shifted. Not overnight. Not like in those cheesy movies where everything's perfect by the credits. But slowly. They started asking, not assuming. I caught Ryan doing the dishes. Without being told, I saw Katie reading a book on elder rights. Tyler asked about my childhood. Ben sat next to me just to watch birds. It was like watching a family rediscover itself, not because they were forced to, but because they chose to. And me? I painted again. I laughed more. I even started walking every morning, head high, back straight. The neighbors noticed. One of them even waved and said, Helen, you look taller these days. I smiled. I am. So when I say they laughed, when I told them I was 80, let them. Because I'm 80 and louder than ever. 80 and unbending. 80 and finally, unapologetically, me.